Hello and welcome. My name is Adam and I'm a member of the Future Leaders Community Steering Group. Psychological and behavioural safety is a huge and important topic which is often talked about and there's plenty of theory about it to read. However, when starting on our health and safety journey, it can seem quite a daunting or difficult task to work out what does psychological or behavioural safety look like in our organisation and what roles workers and senior leaders play with it. Equally, it's difficult to know how we can implement, embed, and sustain psychological and behavioral safety in our organizations and ultimately build a positive safety culture. Today, I'm joined by Darren Sutton, an author of 2 IOSH certified programs, Behavioral Science for Leadership and Performance Psychology for Professionals, and founder of Behavioral Safety Services Training to talk about psychological safety. Darren, please could you provide a bit more information on yourself and your work?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Well, first of all, it's a real privilege to be invited on your podcast here. Psychological safety is, behavioral safety and psychological safety, they're two very different constructs. Psychological safety is kind of part of behavioral safety when we get it right. Can also affect it when it get it wrong as well. But I've worked very closely with IOSH over the last 12 or 15 years, actually, Adam. I've authored 4 courses. 3 online courses and 1 live course. The 2 latest, as you've said, the behavioral science for leadership in safety and the performance psychology for safety professionals. I'm a performance psychologist. Performance psychology is it's a little bit like sports psychology, only you can apply the principles of performance psychology to sport, the military, healthcare, dance, music, just about any aspect of performance. So that's what attracted me to performance psychology. And the principles of performance psychology just happen to relate really, really well to safety. So I work mostly in the safety, health and well-being arena. I still occasionally work with sports teams, sometimes some musicians as well. But safety is where my passion is. That's where I do most of my work. And it is great to be part of this Future Leaders program. These podcasts, webinars, whatever we're going to call them, are aimed at. So thanks again for inviting me. I'm looking forward to your questions.
No, thank you so much for that introduction as well. And I think what was really key there, and thank you for introducing it, is that it does go across a broad spectrum of different areas as well. So, if we're reading about it in safety, we can also read about it in lots of different areas. And I think that's a strong thing to start off with. So thank you so much for that bit. First question. So could you just really describe what is psychological safety? And is it something really that we can create easily? And obviously, what are the benefits to it?
Yeah. Okay. So 3 parts to that question. I'd rather go to can we create it easily first. Well, first of all, psychological safety. It is a thing, Adam. But it's one of those things that's so valuable to us. It's so highly valued. It's so important to any organization, whether it's a sports team of 10 or 12 or 5 or 6 people, or a huge organization of several hundred thousand. Psychological safety is something that everybody looks for. That's a prerequisite for performance excellence, let's say. So it is a thing for sure. Why I hesitate in can we create it is because it will be in existence already. It will be in existence. And just like most things that are of huge value to us, like, I don't know, art, love, passion, all these things that we look for and yearn for, psychological safety, even though it is a thing, it's not easy to see or touch or feel. It's certainly not easy to measure. It's just one of those things, Adam, that we know when it's there. We know when it's there, and we know when it's not. And there's what I'm excited about this conversation is what we can do to ensure its existence, to make sure people feel comfortable, to air their opinions, to share what they think, to improve our performance in any area that we're looking at, whether it's safety or sport or quality control or whatever. And also perhaps look at some of the things we can do to, if we detect or if we feel that there's not a presence of psychological safety, what little tiny quick wins, little tiny quick steps can people like yourself do right from this moment to start to encourage that to become better. So yeah, that's a bit of a long answer there, though. Does that make sense, Adam? Can you relate psychological safety to things like art and love?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure you can really. Like you say, it's that measurement, though, is the critical bit and the hard bit, maybe for us to kind of actually, sort of discuss and talk about and put into context for, others to maybe grasp as well, particularly as we're driven by data a lot of the time, which again is very different to that feeling. It's obviously black and white a little bit more.
Absolutely, yeah. I love the way you phrase that, because in safety especially, just like in lots of other performance areas as well, we like to look at metrics. We love our data, and of course, we've got loads of ways of gathering loads of data, more than ever before in time. And we focus too much. We focus too much on that data. What's your thing, Adam? We had a quick chat before, but away from safety, what's your thing? Is it sport? Is it music? Is it art? What do you like to do in your spare time?
It's actually cycling, so it's very much performance driven. Although I'm not, competing for anything in particular, but it's very much just about kind of spot eats. So again, there is a level of competition within that and in performance and improving. So, it's very relatable actually.
Yeah. I should ask you, who's your favorite cyclist of all time then?
I'm quite terrible with names and stuff like that, but I think, it's going to be the comeback kid of Mark Cavendish. You can't not love him.
Well, yeah, that's why I asked you see, because if we look at Mark Cavendish, as you say, you can't not love him. There's something about him, his charisma, the way he makes us feel, his passion. He's not won the most gold medals. He's not won the most championships, far from it. He's not the most successful or even the most popular, but there's just something about him. Laura Trott as well, Victoria Pendleton. There's just something about these performers, even though we couldn't say they were the greatest because of the numbers or the metrics. There's a feeling about them, and psychological safety is a lot like that. It's just a lot like that. We can't measure it, we can't really touch it, we can't see it, but it's really, really important to us. And let's get into the first question, Adam. I'd love to talk about cycling.
Yeah, and I think just again coming back to that though, again, I think it's helpful to put into other context for ourselves as future leaders, and again linking back to the things that we're passionate about and that we want to see improve, both professionally but personally. So again, we can start to unpick some of the little things and how that works outside of on our work environment, and utilize all of that to then really help us understand it in the work environment with our employees. So you alluded to it earlier on, is just a little sort of thing about those quick wins, but for ourselves thinking about psychological safety as future leaders and those who are going to hopefully grow the profession, what are the key things for us to consider with this, and how can we get started with sort of explaining psychological safety to others as well in the organization that we work in?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I'm going to put my cards on the table here, Adam. I think we overcomplicate psychological safety. I know there's some really brilliant people out there, really clever, well-researched people that have published a lot on psychological safety. And we see that in the social media. I think we overcomplicate it. It's quite simply, have people got a voice, and how confident do they feel in sharing that voice, in contributing to performance in whatever we're talking about, whether it's safety, health, well-being, or in any performance environment. It's nothing more complicated than that, Adam. Now, the key thing is, well, let me ask you. How confident are you, Adam, in sharing your opinions with IOSH, or perhaps within your company at the moment, or perhaps in your company that we were talking before that? How confident are you to really share your opinions as a future leader in our profession?
Yeah, and it's a great question, to be honest. I would say somewhat confident. I wouldn't say 100% confident. And that's probably, again, something like imposter syndrome kind of kicks in. Do I know more than others potentially? Or is it that I'm still so new that my voice isn't maybe there enough potentially, as well as the general fear, I guess, that does exist, unfortunately, but it does exist.
Okay, so you're not unusual. I have those same fears. I guess there's a good 20 or 30 years difference in our age and experience levels. I have exactly those same fears. What are people going to think? imposter syndrome, it really is a thing. There are some little tips and techniques that we can learn to get us over that. So next question is, what would open you up? What would do you have a little voice in your head, Adam? We call it in psychology, in performance psychology, we call that little voice on the head self-talk. Do you have a little voice in your head?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it plays a huge part in our decision making, especially when it comes to psychological safety, whether we're going to say anything or not. We're at a meeting table, we're in a webinar like this, we've got Louise from IOSH filming us, hundreds of people are probably going to be watching this podcast. And our self-talk right now is saying, what are people going to, exactly the things you just said there. So let me ask you, I do have an answer for you, I promise you, but I'm really curious to see what your answer is. What would make you feel more confident to just say what you blinking think in situations like this?
I'm not entirely sure. I think it's just the fear of repercussions potentially is the thing that stops you from wanting to say it or being able to say it, or not knowing the outcome from that. So there's a voice that stops you from voicing it because there's the unknown. Probably the two things.
So what were the things that what things would you want to hear that would make you more confident to express your real opinions?
Tough question. Empathy and understanding, I think, would be something there, and time and ability to translate and relate into other things. All of that, I think, would help me speak my mind more.
Wow. Oh, just those 3 or 4 things that you just said there, that's all it takes. Just little steps like that to help people like you and others feel much more confident to share their opinions, to speak their mind, to help us improve performance. So yeah, there are some other tools as well. Our self-talk, I really want to get that point across. What people say in their heads, their internal dialogue. Shall I say something? Shall I not? What are the repercussions? What will people think? There's ways we can get over that. There's ways we can re-divert our self-talk, such as, I'm really curious. The reason I'm asking you all these questions, Adam, is because they're probably different to your opinions. Your answers that I get from my questions are probably going to be very different to the conversation that Tim and I had, or Louise and I might have had, because you've got a very different background. You're probably a lot younger than Tim and Louise as well. So yeah, you've got something to say that's different to others. And as long as organizations and leaders and managers get that message across, that's the important thing. Help people understand that we want to hear your opinion, because it's going to be very different to other people that we've got in our organization. So there's some easy steps for organizations and leaders to take. The other quick win, I asked you this whilst we had a quick conversation down in London, Adam. Are you familiar with the KISS model?
No, I hadn't really explored that one.
Okay, well, that's really refreshing, because most people my age think the KISS model is something is something that was keep it simple, stupid. Well, that had its place 30 or 40 years ago. The KISS model is something completely different to that. And actually, British Cycling used something very, very similar, since you mentioned British Cycling earlier, and Mark Cavendish. So the KISS model is, well, we can use it in feedback, we can use it in general conversation. It's basically, well, when did you last go on holiday, Adam?
In Easter.
At Easter, was it good or not so good, or how was it?
It was brilliant, actually. It was really good.
So the first question is, right, everybody, what should we keep on doing? What was so great about a holiday? So the K stands for keep. What is it that we did that made that holiday so brilliant? So we can keep doing that when we plan our next holiday. Now, the I, Adam, stands for improve. My guess is, even though you said it was brilliant, were there any areas for improvement?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's one where we've been to the area quite a bit, and so we ended up doing similar things to what we've done previously. So from that, we would definitely look at exploring a little bit further out of where we were.
So even though the holiday was brilliant, there's things for us to keep, and there's certainly things for us to improve as well. Now then, even though the holiday was brilliant, Adam, My guess is there just might be some things that you want to stop doing. Let's never do that again on a cycling holiday. Were they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask you what they are. Okay, they'll remain personal to you. But even though it was a brilliant holiday, we're starting to understand there's loads of things we're going to keep to make sure it's even better next time. Some things we can still improve upon. Even some things we need to stop doing because that didn't help us have such a great holiday this time. And then the final S, keep, improve, stop. And the final S is we go like this. Have any of you got any brilliant ideas, any new ideas that we didn't do this holiday that we might want to try next holiday to make it even better again? So that's the KISS model: keep, improve, stop, start. Now, I don't know if Dave Brailsford still does this or whether it was actually him who did this with British Cycling. But what I do know is elite sporting organisations, they use the KISS model very, very frequently, more than daily even, after every training session, after every competition or match. How did that go? Well, we won, boss. We won really well today. We won the championship, actually pretty easily. Well, let's just see how our performance was. Let's keep, improve, stop, start. And they're used to this cycle. We can use it as a feedback cycle. We can use it to review our performance. And yeah, the KISS model is fantastic. I love it, as you can tell. What the hell?
No, and that's a great thing, actually, in terms of a model, and again, how you've sort of described how to use it as well as a tool, even on the small things that we may sort of go, actually, we don't need to review, we don't need to look at, we don't need to do any more work on. Actually, we can continually use it as a self-checking tool or as a tool with others to really get that good feedback and actually understand where the improvements in particular may come from and what those opportunities are, rather than sort of accepting that we've reached a point and therefore we'll just carry on as is and no change is needed or required. I think that's a very good point for a lot of us, as particularly in terms of our own self-reflection, but also the self-reflection of others and those around us. A lot of us fail to sort of get that feedback and, kind of ask ourselves questions because, again, I guess that fear of, are we going to say something or will that be taken the wrong way, kind of creeps into the conversation again, as you've already said and mentioned as well. So it's brilliant. It sounds like a brilliant model.
So that's kind of you to say, but I'm interested, what the heck is this? Why are we talking about the KISS model when we should be talking about psychological safety? What has the KISS model got to do with psychological safety, Adam? What's your take on that?
For me, from the discussion so far, is very much around that removing of the fear and being able to contribute and building up that environment where others can use their voice and they're actually able to build on what it is that's already there rather than what's sort of given to them, I would say.
Absolutely, that really, when Louise invited me to this meeting, I'm thinking, oh, psychological safety, what new is there out there? What can I bring that's new to the table? And Tim Marsh is going to be talking about it as well. What can I add that's anything different? And after a couple of days thinking about it, even though I use the KISS model in so many different areas, the KISS model is great for psychological safety for exactly the reason you just said there. Just imagine if we had a meeting, whether it's safety or quality control or sales or a meeting with your team, the next meeting, and the leader, if at the end of the meeting or even at the start of the meeting, she starts off the meeting by saying, hey, look, how have we done so far? What are the things we should keep? Anything to improve? And then the magic, is there anything that any of you think we should stop doing because it's not helping sales or safety or quality? And just by going through that format, after people have got used to giving the keeps, the things we're doing really, really well and we're really great at, they get a bit more confident and they share some improves. Then, it's still tough to get a stop. And when I do it, the first time I do it, okay, give us a stop. What don't you like? What should we stop doing? You have to wait a few moments. You have to encourage a few people to step forward. But then once we get into the cycle, once we get in the habit of ritual of this KISS model, people become much more likely to be confident to say, hey, yeah, I've got to stop. I think we should stop doing this. This is really not great. We got really lucky today. So the KISS model is going to be great for psychological safety. And my only hope is that more leaders will use it in as many environments as they see fit. not just for safety, in other areas as well, as you rightly say. So yeah, there's a few quick wins there. I love what you said as well, though, Adam. Those 3 or 4 things: empathy, understanding, engagement, and listening. People listening to you. That's going to help. If people think they're being heard, they're being properly, actively listened to, that's going to give them more confidence to share their ideas again. So yeah.
Linking into that then, in terms of the operational and strategic sort of thinking side of organizations, how does psychological safety build into those 2 areas and affect those areas? Because often with strategy, with the forward thinking stuff, it would be difficult to imagine a stop, or it might be difficult to, think of the KISS model within all of that. But operationally, we could often say lots of things in terms of that. We want to improve on this, or we want to stop on that. So how can future leaders start to build in the strategic thinking side and use psychological safety to build on, more forward thinking approaches?
Yeah. Great question. Well, what we've just been discussing there, that's at the operational level. There are things we can do right at the coal face, in whether it's in boardrooms or toolbox talks, the things that we've been talking about already: self-talk, what's our voice saying, how can we reframe it, etc. The KISS model, those 3 or 4 words that you use, that's going to help us at the operational level. At the strategic level, I nearly said it gets a bit more complex then, but it doesn't. It's just the same thing, Adam. I've had the opportunity to be around the table with people at the strategic level. And have you, Adam? Have you been into your exec board? Have you been into your C-suite? Or
No. So this is again, this is a personal question, thinking about my future development as well.
I hear you. Well, guess what, Adam? It's no blinking different as to whether you're talking on a construction site in a toolbox talk, or whether you're in a boardroom with the C-suite, or wherever I was going back 20, 30 years ago there. It's nothing more complicated than, if the leader wants to listen to people, if the leader wants to hear people's ideas, then guess what? They'll find a way, they'll find the time, the space, and they'll encourage people to step forward and share their ideas. And great leaders do exactly that. They understand, even though they're at the very senior strategic level of an organization, they understand that they don't have all the answers. And even in some of the boardrooms that I've been more recently, they'll have young people like you. I was quite surprised in some of the companies just pre-COVID and even after COVID, right there up at C-suite level, and they'll have 20 or 30 somethings sitting around the table. Why, Adam? I was expecting all 50 somethings, and why have they got 20 and 30 somethings sitting around the in the boardroom? Why do you think?
Well, I would hope because of the changing perspective, the approach of ideas, new technology, new information that's always coming, and kind of, utilizing that as an opportunity to think outside the box, so that it's not the stale sort of reused way of going. It's let's discover more, really.
Exactly that. And great leaders understand exactly what you just said there. And I'm seeing that more and more. And I think that's great news for the future leaders community. It's great news for your generation, because you do look at things very, very different to my generation. You've got access to so many more tools and resources. AI, we could talk about AI, Adam, and you probably know much more about than I, even though I'm trying to understanding, a great deal about how it can work for us in safety. So yeah, we're seeing that more and more at exec board, C-suite level, and I think that's not just a good thing; it's a great thing. But it requires psychological safety. It requires the leader to create that space for young people, even inexperienced people, to share their ideas and feel safe, feel confident when they're doing that. How do they do that? Well, there's no magic secret, Adam. It's exactly the same as I've said before. When you're conducting a toolbox talk with your company, it doesn't matter whether it's 20 or 30 people within a football club, or whether it's 20 or 30,000 people within a corporation. That's the way it's done. Trust, respect, and empathy. like you, those magic engagement, those magic words that you use right at the start of this conversation. Does this make sense? Am I oversimplifying things here? Am I?
No, absolutely not, Darren. Thank you for that, because one of the questions around the role of others and how they can play within psychological safety. However, I think you just answered that question brilliantly, and actually it's about putting others in sort of positions to do some of that work themselves, rather than us as safety professionals or others around us having to build that framework. Actually, the framework exists with our employees, our peers, and actually it's about just utilizing them to really make success happen as well, rather than sort of saying, because we're the safety guy or the safety person, we have to do that, and that's our role. It's a facilitation, I guess, is part of that, which is, again, building up an extra skill as a future leader, being able to be that person to come to and hold the conversation together and support that framework that, you know, others can then join into, which is fantastic. So thank you. And that was a great analogy as well, which I'm sure will resonate with a lot of people as well.
So let's go back into the boardroom, Adam. And the boss, the big boss, she's asking for everybody's opinion, or he's asking for everybody's opinion. And you're around the table, and you're the safety guy. And they want you to speak up and share your opinion, something you need to keep doing or stop doing or whatever it might be. Now then, here we go. Remember this soonness and certainty, Adam. So if you keep quiet and say nothing, what's going to happen?
Nothing, essentially. That things may happen in the future still, because you haven't voiced up the opinion. You haven't said anything at that point.
Well, let's look at it again. Let's really, because this is a behavior that we can analyze. You know, somebody's asking you your opinion and you've decided to keep quiet today. Now, if you keep quiet today, the certainty is you're not going to get in trouble. Okay, you're not going to get praised or rewarded either, but the certainty is nobody's going to think you're foolish. Nobody's going to think you're inexperienced. Nothing bad. The certainty is, the sureness is, nothing bad's going to happen. Not today anyway. And the immediacy of that is, as soon as you choose to say, no, I've got nothing to say, again, it's like, I don't need to think about it. I don't need to share my opinion. So that it feels good for you to just stay quiet. This is one of the reasons why people tend to stay quiet and not share their opinions, because the soonness and certainty of either feeling good or feeling bad, in this case, the soonness and certainty of feeling good for saying nothing is there. It's pretty certain you'll feel okay if you say nothing, and you'll feel okay straight away if you say nothing. Does this make sense, Adam?
Yep.
So it's just like the hard hat or the safety goggles. This is why people choose to say nothing, and this is why we get silence around our boardrooms or even on our toolbox talk. So the trick is, the so what here is, we need to use the tools that you and I have been discussing, you've been discussing with Tim as well, the practical tools to make people feel more confident, to increase the soonness and certainty of people feeling good for sharing their opinion. And that might be just, Adam, thank you so much. We're not sure we agree with you, but we really appreciate you taking the time to share your opinion. Or it might be to open people up. It might be, if you're looking like you're not going to say anything today, if I've asked you your opinion, you're not going to say anything today, it might be somebody just saying, the leader saying, look, Adam, you're from a different background to us. We'd really value your angle on things because you're going to be different to us. So we'd really appreciate you at least sharing your views. Little things that we can have in the moment at the operational level to increase the likelihood of feeling good for sharing their opinions, increase the soonness and certainty. Now, I've probably not explained that too well. Louise, you might have to edit some of that out a little bit. We might need to share a little document or another video clip to explain this soonness and certainty, but I know you get it, Adam. And I think it's massively important for psychological safety as well. Does that make sense? Or...
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we'll add it as a takeaway into the sort of comment or whatever we want to generate from that, if that makes sense. We'll link to some of your work as well on this as well on that bit. So that's not a problem, Darren. Thank you. Right, I'm just gonna do a roundup sentence if that's all right, Darren, and then we'll kind of get to the end of just this bit then. Brilliant. So thank you, Darren. That was a really informative session, and your insight and your analogies and your ability to kind of use the models in this conversation have been really valuable. I've definitely taken away a considerable amount, and I'm sure future leaders and those watching the webinar and listening in certainly will as well. We'll be supplying a couple of takeaway comments and sections at the end of this webinar that you can then hopefully link into and use in your own work, or you can talk to others about and share and hopefully spread the word about how easy psychological safety can be, but also ways that you can then actually take some of the hints and tips from today and actually, improve your own performance as well as the organization's performance. Is there any final words from you, Darren?
Just self-talk. Yeah, if there's one final takeaway, self-talk. Get used to listen to that little voice in your head in those moments when you're asking people to share their opinion, or you're being asked to share your opinion. Listen to what it says, and if it's not helpful to you, if you find that it doesn't encourage you to say what you really want to say, then the great news is we can reframe that self-talk. We can retrain our inner voice, just like we can do a muscle. So if there is a final thing, self-talk, self-talk, self-talk. It's magic. It really does. It improve our decision-making. And the KISS model. The KISS model, that's something that can really improve psychological safety. Thank you, bro. I've really enjoyed this conversation, Adam. And thanks for asking some great questions and being so interactive as well, especially on the cycling bit, which is entirely relevant, I think.
Thank you so much, Darren.